feeling low.
Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brianna, and yes, I recently got my eyebrows done. No, they're not microbladed. And welcome to another installment of my ongoing series, True Science. In this series, I combine my interest in true crime with my love of science. Today's video especially will intertwine the fact that I work in healthcare. I'm a clinical dietitian. In this series, we talk about everything from doctors that turned out to be frauds, bizarre medical phenomena, mad scientists, and everything in between. On tap today is the ongoing and still developing case of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson and the man who was accused of taking his life, Luigi Mangione. Buckle up. Before we proceed, if topics like this interest you and you like being reminded every now and then that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, why not hit the subscribe button and join the lemonade stand? We would really love to have you here. Without anything further, let's make lemonade. But I am drinking a latte. Today is probably one of the very few episodes that we're actually covering a case that is happening like in recent history. Most of my other videos in this series, I'm covering cases that happened like 70 years ago, and it's hard to research because they're so old. FYI, because this case is developing and still ongoing, the trial hasn't even started yet for this case. I have to say that everyone who is accused here is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So let's dive in and talk first about Brian Thompson, the victim in today's case. Although victim is a word that, I don't know, it's kind of charged in this context. Brian Robert Thompson was born July 10th, 1974 in Ames, Iowa. Never heard of Ames, Iowa. Had to look it up. It's about 30 miles north of Des Moines, which is the capital city. It is home to Iowa State University and, just looks like a little town. What else can you say about it? This is where Brian was born, and he later attended Iowa State University, where he graduated in 1997 with his bachelor's degree in business administration. According to his LinkedIn page, that same year he graduated, he began working for a company called PwC. According to LinkedIn, Brian worked as an auditor for PwC for about 5 years, and then by September of 2002, he had moved on to transaction advisory services, still at PwC. In total, he was at PwC for about 6.5 years, and then by April 2004, that's when he joined United Health Group. Also, I just want to say, if it sounds kind of echoey in here, that's because we're in the middle of some projects, and there's new floors in here. There's no longer carpet in here, and there's also not a lot of furniture in here right now, so it's super echoey. And also, do you guys love my little accent wall back there? I'll show it to you after I'm done, but I'm just really excited about it. I have a second channel, by the way, home improvement channel, where I document and show like home decor things and all the fun things me and my husband do around our house. Anyway, I just know it sounds echoey in here, and that's why. So based off of Brian Thompson's LinkedIn page, I'm going to go through the timeline of his time working at United, and basically it shows him working his way up the ranks to becoming CEO. Like I said, he joined the company in April 2004, and then in January 2008, he was director in the corporate development department. January 2008 to May 2010, he was vice president of financial controller and CFO, chief financial officer, of Healthcare Alliances. May 2010 to May 2011, he was a chief financial officer, and it just said community and state. May 2011 to December 2013, he was the CFO, employer and individual. I wasn't quite sure what that means, but I'm just quoting it directly. December 2013 to April 2017, he was CFO of Medicare and Retirement. April 2017 through April 2021, he was the CFO of Medicare and Retirement again. I don't know if maybe it was like another job, but in the same department, or maybe he was there between 2013 and 2021, and for some reason LinkedIn just broke it down that way. I don't know, but I'm just reading it how it says. From July 2019 through April 2021, he was the CFO of government programs. Maybe he held that position concurrently with the Medicare and Retirement program. I'm not sure. And then finally, April 2021 up until his death, he was Chief Executive Officer, CEO of United Healthcare. So he was at United for a grand total of 20 years, and he quite literally worked his way up the corporate ladder to the position of CEO. By the time he was CEO, the internet estimates that his salary was in the ballpark of about $10 million a year. And obviously that included benefits like stock options and bonuses and stuff like that. So he was living the life of a CEO, probably getting a lot of Starbucks and stuff. Brian was also a father of 2 boys. Their ages were 16 and 19. I couldn't find their names. They probably don't want to be public. I don't really blame them. And he was married to a woman named Paulette. Although at the time of his death, they were said to be estranged and living separately. Overall, Brian was described by his family as a good person, and a former coach of one of his sons told one publication that he and his wife were present at all of the kids' games and sporting events. So on the morning of December 4th, 2024, Brian Thompson was in Midtown Midtown Manhattan, New York City, for those of you who don't know. It was shortly before 7 a.m. and Brian was headed toward the company's annual investor meeting, which was right across the street at the Hilton Hotel. Now, Brian was walking out of his hotel when a masked individual approached him from behind, trained a pistol on him, and then fired several shots into him. The gunman then fled on a bike headed towards Central Park. At that moment, Brian was obviously critically injured. He was immediately rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital, but shortly after that, 50-year-old Brian Thompson was pronounced deceased. I can only imagine being a bellhop, if there was one, witnessing all of that. First of all, hi PTSD. Second, I bet that happened in a flash. The way I just laid it out for you guys here, it sounds very mechanical and methodical, but really all of that happened in a matter of seconds, and it was all caught on CCTV. So at that point, the hunt was on. Now, a lot of people who are probably thinking, hey, should all of us normal non-millionaires be worried that there's a killer on the loose? Just like that, images grabbed from the CCTV footage that captured the event were plastered everywhere. This was national news. Hey, if you're watching this video from outside, from not in the United States, did you hear about this case? Like, did it make headlines where you were? And I'm asking because I don't assume that American news is important to other countries. So the NYPD was on it. At this point, the only clue left for law enforcement was some spent ammunition left at the crime scene. The ammunition had 3 words inscribed into it: deny, defend, depose. What's the significance of these words, or this phrase, you might ask? This is a phrase frequently used by critics of the United States health insurance system to describe their methods of denying people's health care that they need, to describe their methods of denying people's health care claims. So as a regular person, when this broke and I first heard about this case, before we even knew more about the alleged perpetrator, I immediately thought this was probably someone who was burned by the healthcare insurance industry. They or someone they love needed a life-saving surgery or a treatment or a medication or something, and their health insurance denied their claim for it. And now they or their family member is terminally ill, or maybe even they had passed away because they were denied by their health insurance company. And I'm just gonna be completely transparent here. I thought, it's not right, but like, I get it, if that makes sense. It's not right, but I'll just leave it at that. It's not right, but I get it. And we'll talk more about that, in a little bit. So law enforcement officials did their thing, and they were able to figure out the gunman's movements that would get memed to hell and back all over the internet. For example, the alleged gunman was spotted on CCTV at a hostel flashing a smile at an employee. He was even said to be seen at a Starbucks before the shooting. His movements were tracked, and he made his way out of the city through Central Park and using public transportation. So finally, on December 9th, the suspected shooter was apprehended at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. He was identified by some people there, and McDonald's made the call to law enforcement and were like, hey, get this guy. When the individual was apprehended, he had some pretty damning items on him, including some writings with him that went on and on about the corrupt healthcare system here in the United States. The individual also had what's called a ghost gun that also had a silencer. What's a ghost gun? It's basically an untraceable weapon, and it's believed that this one was made with a 3D printer. Same thing with the silencer, also made with a 3D printer, which is crazy. You can make anything with a 3D printer. So, who was this guy? Who was the person who was arrested at this McDonald's? His name was Luigi Mangione. Who is he? Well, at the very least, you've probably seen his mugshot. Probably one of the most famous mugshots of modern history. Maybe even right up there with our commander-in-chief. Luigi Mangione was born May 6, 1998. Oh my God, that's the day after my brother's birthday. He was born in Dawson, Maryland, and this kid was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So his grandfather, Nicholas Mangione, had established several businesses. He also became a real estate developer, and he became very successful at his businesses and developing real estate. After he died, his kids took over the businesses, and one of his sons, Luigi's father, took over Mangione Family Enterprises. Even Luigi's extended family, and there is a lot of them, because Luigi's grandfather, Nicholas, and his grandmother had 10 children and 37 grandchildren. They own a country club, they own a resort, they own a radio station, and there's the Mangione Family Foundation. Luigi also has a cousin in politics who was in the Maryland House of Delegates. His grandfather was a real rags to riches story too. He was born to poor Sicilian immigrants in Baltimore, Maryland, and he went on to build this business empire and ultimately become a self-made multimillionaire. So it really seems like on paper, Luigi really had everything going for him. In 2016, 2016, he graduated as valedictorian from Gilman College, an all-boys private school, where he gave a speech at graduation. He attended an Ivy League college himself, and he was headed toward a promising career in technology. So how did we get here? How was he arrested and now accused of gunning down a CEO in cold blood, in broad daylight, in Manhattan? Reminder, just FYI, throwing it out there, he is innocent until proven guilty. At some point during Luigi's budding adulthood, he found himself in Hawaii, in a surfing community. That is what an article from the BBC that I found said. That's what they called it. Another report I found said that he was living in a shared penthouse and working remotely. He's had a few roommates from his time living in this situation here come forward. One came forward and said that his actions were, quote, unfathomable.
Did his best to be athletic and unfathomable, knowing the kind, person that I saw and knew.
So at some point, Luigi developed back problems after an injury. One report called it, quote, crippling back pain, end quote. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it really impacted his day-to-day life. The condition he's believed to have suffered with is called, hold on, excuse me. I need to look at my notes for this. Come on, you practiced. Spondylolisthesis. That sounds right. And basically this happens when one of your vertebrae slip forward, which sounds quite painful. And it was caused by an injury that he suffered back on the 4th of July in 2023. Following this injury, there was an ER visit which resulted in him having to have surgery, and he had to have screws put in his spine. A photo of that was found posted on his social media accounts. So the theory is that during his recovery, being in pain from this injury, he developed a lot of animosity and resentment toward the health insurance system. And it's believed that this resentment led him to allegedly do what he is believed of doing allegedly. So when he was apprehended in Philadelphia, the notebooks with the writings in them that they found were very expressive of his disdain and hatred toward the United States health insurance industry. He lamented that despite having the most expensive healthcare system in the world, we have one of the lowest life expectancy rates. Things that are not necessarily untrue. Here's the real kicker though. He was not a customer of United Healthcare. It is theorized that he allegedly targeted United Healthcare because it's one of the biggest health insurers in the country. As far as evidence against him, this includes matching prints found at the scene of the crime. Police were also able to match the ghost gun, which remember they found it on him when they arrested him in Pennsylvania, the 9mm shell casings that were left at the scene of the crime. On December 6th, he was charged in Pennsylvania with forgery, firearms not to be carried without a license, tampering with records of identification, possessing instruments of crime, and false identification to law enforcement. Of course, since this crime was allegedly committed in New York, he was also to face charges there as well. There are, I think, 10 or 11, there's a little bit of a typo in my script here. I wrote 1, but I think that's supposed to be an 11 or a 10. So there are about 10 or 11 charges in total. 2 of them include a first-degree murder charge and a murder as a crime of terrorism charge. And he pled not guilty to the crime of murder and the terrorism charges in New York. If he is found guilty of all of the charges, then he is looking at life in prison without the possibility of parole. So on December 10th, when he was being walked inside the courthouse, he was a little bit rowdy. He had a little lemon zest in his step that day. I watched the footage. I mean, it's on the internet. It's on YouTube. He was resistant, yelled at the cameras. He said what he was going through was, quote, an insult to the intelligence of the American people. End quote.
Completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Classic Luigi. On December 19th, he was taken into federal custody and was presented to a Manhattan federal court to face the judge. Some of his other charges actually include stalking, because they believe that he allegedly stalked Brian Thompson, and they believe that this attack was premeditated. In a press release released by justice.gov on December 19th, they said the following. Mangione meticulously planned the execution of Brian Thompson in an effort to initiate a public discussion about the healthcare industry. Mangione targeted the victim, tracked his whereabouts, and traveled from out of state to New York City, where the victim was scheduled to attend the company's investor conference. At the time of filming, Luigi Mangione is being held without bail at a Manhattan detention center. He has not yet gone to trial for his alleged crimes, and we are all sitting waiting with bated breath. Now, this event has ignited quite the discussion online. If I had to assign a numerical value to it, I would have to estimate that 98% of people are in full support of Luigi Mangione. He's being hailed as a folk hero in some corners of the internet. And don't even get me started on the memes. He has been memed to hell and back by comedy content creators all over the place. The public response to this has been wild. I have to say, being that the overwhelming majority of the public seemingly are in support of Luigi and his actions, allegedly. I have no idea how they're going to find an impartial jury for this trial. The jurors they choose are probably going to have to be cave dwellers who have never seen a white man, because I don't know how else they're going to give this guy a fair trial. Now you may ask, Queen Lemon, why would anyone support an alleged murderer? Well, I'll tell you why. In order to understand why, you have to understand the structure of the United States health insurance system. First things first, I'm saying we, I live in the United States, I'm American. We do not have universal health care here. Okay, we took a brief break because the camera overheated, but we're back. A lot of people from other countries don't understand that we in America don't have universal health care. Many Americans don't understand this either, and now here we all are. So the American health insurance system is a mix of private and public insurance. Primary public insurance companies here in the United States are Medicare and Medicaid, which are financed by multiple sources, which include taxpayers and government funding. Both Medicare and Medicaid are operated by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, aka CMS. CMS is part of the Department of Health and Human Services, or DHHS. DHHS is a branch of the federal government. As of 2019, about half of Americans get private health insurance through their employer, about 35% receive either Medicare or Medicaid, and about 9% of Americans are uninsured. Those numbers added up are not going to equal 100. I left a couple statistics out. United Health Insurance is considered a private insurer, and it is one of the largest in the world. Basically, the way insurance works here in the United States is it's supposed to cover procedures, medications, medical equipment. That's putting it super simply. Now, notice I said it's supposed to cover those things. It doesn't always. A big thing is pre-existing conditions. For example, if you already have a cancer diagnosis and you are trying to enroll with a new health insurer, they will more than likely not be covering any of your cancer treatments or medications or anything like that because you already have cancer. It's a pre-existing condition. That's what that means. However, if you already have health insurance and then you are later diagnosed with cancer, then your insurer is more than likely, the expectation is that they're going to cover most things you need for your cancer treatment and medicines and surgeries and stuff like that. It's not considered a pre-existing condition because you didn't have it when they initially decided to cover you. This is why when you're healthy, it's usually easier and not as expensive to get health insurance coverage. However, for people who are chronically ill, who are trying to get health insurance coverage, it's a lot harder and usually more expensive for them because they have one or several pre-existing conditions that health insurance companies don't want to cover because it would cost them a lot of money. So the year prior to the shooting, United Healthcare made $372 billion. Even before his death, Brian Thompson has faced many death threats and heavy criticism from people all over the country having their health insurance claims denied. And you have to kind of think where people are coming from. I need this life-saving treatment to live. My doctor says I need it to live, but the insurance company is allowed to decide you don't need it, and they're allowed to deny you coverage. And medical stuff is freaking expensive, and most people don't just have $10, $20, $30, $50,000 lying around to get a life-saving cancer treatment they might need. They rely on insurance, but when insurance denies your claim, the insurance company just decides that you don't need it and they won't cover it. And then what are you left to do? Now, on paper, there's usually reasons why health insurance companies deny claims. If you Google it, some of the top things in Google will say policy exclusions, pre-existing conditions like we talked about, or you just don't have the coverage. Like maybe your plan that you have just doesn't cover that specific thing. There's many reasons on paper, but to the person who needs the claim approved, you can see how to them the reality of it looks like, my doctor says I need this treatment to survive, to live, or to improve my quality of life. I'm over here suffering, but my health insurance company won't cover it because they just decided I don't need it for whatever reason. Meanwhile, the CEO of the health insurance company just bought his third house on the Riviera and just cleared another $800,000 paycheck that month. It's not hard to see why people get jaded at stuff like this. Now, I will say, I'm sure it wasn't Brian Thompson himself, like sitting at a desk all day, clicking the deny button on people's health insurance claims. But as the CEO, you would expect that he still had the power to change things, but he didn't. A lot of people online have argued, and I feel like it could justifiably be argued that a lot of health insurance companies have blood on their hands. So when you take all of that into consideration, it's not hard to see why so many people online find it hard to sympathize with Brian Thompson's death. I'm an inpatient clinical dietitian. I do occasionally do outpatient medical nutrition therapy for bariatric stuff because my hospital does bariatric surgery, and part of our bariatric program is you have to meet with a dietitian. So for inpatient stuff, the insurance stuff is like, that's taken care of beyond me. I don't touch any of that stuff, doing my inpatient stuff day to day, seeing my patients. But for my outpatient stuff, following my outpatient appointments, I have to fill out there's a lot of paperwork, and I'm still new enough at it that my boss has to walk me through it every time because there's specific things that I have to take note of and code for insurance purposes. Some dietitians who work in private practice have to deal with insurance companies a lot because there's plenty of instances that insurance will cover a registered dietitian. So all that being said, I see why people are so jaded, and I see why the overwhelming majority of the American public just has no sympathy at all for Brian Thompson and is hailing Luigi as some kind of modern day folk hero. Murder is wrong. We all know that, right? We all know that. And I'm going to be completely honest. I feel a great deal of sympathy for his children. Brian Thompson has 2 teenage boys. It can't be easy to mourn your father's death while seeing people online being so indifferent to it, even being happy and making jokes about your dad's death. I imagine, like, what if that was my dad? I would feel horrible. Like, I really do hope his kids are okay, and I hope they're staying offline. That's probably the best thing for them. But again, it's easy to see why the public response is what it is. And I guess I'll just round it off with all of that being said. Brian Thompson being dead is probably not going to get your claims approved. They're going to hire a new CEO if they haven't already. They might have already. I do like to see that this event, it's unfortunate for, a person died. He was still a person with a family, but I do like to see that this has ignited discussion about a long-standing issue in the United States. It feels like a lot of people don't really talk about it so much, about the problems with monetizing healthcare. Many people argue, and I don't necessarily disagree with this either, Brian Thompson's not the only victim. Millions of people are the victims of the health insurance industry every single year, every single day. And it's sad. So I do like that this event has started a discussion about that. I will more than likely be watching this case when it finally does go to trial. Yeah, that's all I got. What do you guys think? Let me know below. Thank you so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more content similar to this, why not hit the subscribe button? I upload every now and then. Again, thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one in a few weeks. Bye. First, I have to show you guys my little plant wall. I'm gonna put plants on those shelves right there. It's not done. I have to do some touch-ups. See, this slightly misshapen circle is just driving me crazy. I'm gonna fix it soon, but it's mostly done, and I'm just so pleased with it. I love it. It's right by a window. I'm gonna put a grow light there, and oh, I'm so excited. Okay, you guys don't care. Let's go find the dogs. Oh, and here's our new floors, by the way. I'm still filming, honey. I'm finding dogs. There's a dog. There's Onyx. What a handsome old man. Hey, dude. Hey, dude. Onyx. Yeah, that's my old man. Oh, hey, Zeus. You so handsome. What a handsome boy. And let's go see the little hippo. Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Oh, your nose is dry. When you put some coconut oil on your nose, baby girl. Hey, baby. Can you say bye? Can you say bye? Bye. Bye.